Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Monday Night Travel with Rick Steves Europe. Whether this is your first time joining us or your 200th, we are grateful to have you here as we kick off our summer session in style. My name is Gabe Gunning, and I have the privilege of serving as your host this evening as we explore not places over the Atlantic, but rather great places in our own backyard, and we are going to explore them by hike, bike, and raft. In just a few moments, we are going to be joined by a dear friend and travel expert of mine. But first, I have a few introductory announcements. I would like to remind you that this is the first of our summer sessions, and we have an exciting lineup. All 5 of our June shows are on our website at ricksteves.com/MNT for Monday Night Travel. Those are all available for registration now, and our July and August shows are going to be available soon, so keep checking back. As always, we love to hear from you, so please post in the Q&A widget with any questions or comments that you have, or just to say hello. We are going to have a Q&A session at the end of tonight's show, so we would love your questions. And as always, if you look at the chat widget, we're going to be posting a list of resource links related to tonight's presentation. Those links will also be included in tomorrow's follow-up email that will go out 24 hours from now. Not tomorrow morning, but 24 hours from now. Now, without further ado, we are going to get started on our journey for today. As I said, we are going to be exploring America's natural wonders by hike, bike, and raft. And as the title suggests, we are going to have 3 main sections in tonight's show. We're going to focus on hiking, biking, and rafting. And as we explore these 3 types of travel, we are going to be talking both about best practices and best destinations. Of course, we cannot tell you everything that there is to know about hiking, biking, and rafting tonight, but our hope is that this is going to, at the outset of the summer, as we enter outdoor recreation season in the US, that this is going to get you acquainted with perhaps some new places in the US that you could explore and some good practical tips and first steps so that you can get started on those explorations. But before we embark on that journey, I need to welcome on a dear friend of mine. This was us almost exactly 3 years ago when he first joined us on Monday Night Travel, and I am so glad that he is back with us tonight. I would love to welcome on my dear friend, Mikah Meyer. Mikah, welcome back to Monday Night Travel.
Thank you, Gabe. It is an honor to be the kick off to your summer season. I hope you all enjoyed some rest, maybe some European travel in your past few weeks of getting a break from Monday Night Travel. But I hope the audience is ready to keep on traveling tonight, at least virtually.
Rest assured that whenever the Monday Night Travel team gets a break, it is not much of a break. It is spent traveling.
Good.
I actually did my travel around the US, and so I'm especially excited about tonight's topic. And I want to know, Micah, I know that you probably travel almost as much as the Monday Night Travel team combined. Where have you gone so far in 2026, or what are some of the places that you're looking forward to going?
Well, probably my favorite trip of 2026 was celebrating my 40th birthday. I took a cruise from San Juan, Puerto Rico, which, if you've heard the First Time in Puerto Rico song on social media, it was not my first time, but it was my first time doing a Southern Caribbean cruise and on Virgin Voyages, and I had a blast. So I am now happily in my next decade and looking forward to the adventures that it brings.
Well, I know that you'd been to Puerto Rico before because you had very important business to do there previously. And I want to use that as a segue to ask you, um, you know, I, Micah, we need to know, why are you qualified to give us travel advice this evening? So I'm hoping that you can share a bit with us about how you became an outdoor recreation expert.
Well, the main reason I'm qualified to share information with you tonight is that I have been to the Rick Steves Europe headquarters in Edmonds, Washington, as you see in this photo. And through the process of osmosis and just holding Rick's books up against my head, I have absorbed a lot of travel expertise thanks to that. But the other reason why I am qualified to be here with you all tonight is that, as you might remember, if you're a frequent Monday Night Traveler, I hosted a show about traveling to America's National Park Service sites. We talked about secrets of America's national parks, and that's because I, for over, 3 years nonstop, from 2016 to 2019, set a world record visiting all of America's over 400 National Park Service sites. And when I say National Park Service sites, you'll see in my map here that I traveled to every single one of our 50 states, 5 territories, and 1 District of Columbia, because America doesn't just have 63 national parks. Those locations that you'll see here in this list of all the different National Park Service designations, but America has 433 National Park Service sites, and that includes everything from national military parks to national recreation areas to national lakeshores and our famous capital N, capital P national parks. So after 3 years nonstop of visiting them all, I was happy to have others call me a national parks expert, and I felt like I had earned that title as well. So you might remember if you joined us on that Secrets of America's National Parks, which if you weren't there, you can now watch it on YouTube. It's still up. But I did talk about my favorite National Park Service site. After visiting them all, I can guarantee you it's not one that most of you will have been to. So if you would like to just skip directly to that without watching the whole Monday Night Travel from July of 2022, you can go to my website, mikahmeyer.com, where there is a 3-minute video about my favorite National Park Service site. So that basically brings us to today, where I have returned to Monday Night Travel to tell you how you can all keep on traveling in some unique ways this summer. And Gabe, I think it's time to bring them along on that journey with us. And hopefully there's less wind on this journey than when you and I went to the Faroe Islands together.
I mean, I think that the wind was well worth those scenic views, but we are certainly going to find some scenic views on this side of the Atlantic this evening. And so we are going to start off with our hike section, which I am going to fearlessly take the lead on.
I
I
even
grew up
brought
in
my
a,
hiking hat for it.
oh yes, I also, thanks for reminding me, Micah.
Yeah,
I also have my hiking hat,
you're going to get a
tinted sun
sunburn on your neck
protection.
with that.
Um, I'm fortunate to have grown up in a backpacking family. So basically, since the age that I could carry a backpack, I have been backpacking through the wilderness. And I'm eager to share whether you are a seasoned hiker that is looking for some new hikes, or if you haven't hiked much before and are looking to kind of dip your toe into it metaphorically. Hopefully, this will provide some good tips for you. I would like to start with some hiking best practices. So, nothing good happens without a plan. So, you should always make sure that you plan your hike carefully. If you're going to be going to a national park or a state park, the best place to begin is always with the local ranger station. These are people that work in these places day after day and are trained in helping travelers. You can call ahead, you can look up their websites, but ranger stations are a great resource. And of course, we want to be supporting our rangers now more than ever. Um, Otherwise, if you're going to a place that maybe doesn't have a ranger station, there's also great websites like All Trails, where you can search various regions across the country for different types of hikes. You can filter for different amounts of strenuousness or different amounts of mileage to find a hike that would be a good fit for you. And this is a great time to mention that you should really be training for your hikes if you are new to hiking. Um, Micah, I don't know if you remember this, but this was when you and I were in Copenhagen. And this is a fascinating site, not
Yeah.
really related to tonight's presentation, but was a kind of a water filtration site that, of course, they The clever Scandinavians found a way to weave it into public infrastructure. So this is their really famous snowless skiing hill where you can go down this special kind of plastic fabric that mimics the feel of snow. But when Mike and I were here, we saw people in big backpacks hiking all the way up to the top and back down and then hiking up to the top again. Denmark is a very flat place, and my guess is that these people were probably training for a hike in the Alps. So they did not have many hills at their disposal, so it was just this staircase several times to practice getting that elevation. So wherever you are, regardless of how flat it is or what terrain it's like at home, you can find ways to mimic some of the conditions of the hike that you're training for. It's also good to come up with a plan A and a plan B hike that are near each other. That way, if conditions are especially difficult one day, or if you start the more difficult hike and you are not feeling it, you can go with your plan B rather than trying to push ahead with your plan A and maybe putting yourself in a risky situation. You also want to check what local passes and permits may be required. Here in Washington State, many of our hikes require a Discover Pass that you display on your car. If you're doing multi-day backpacking, you may need to get a permit that you carry with you as you go. And you also want to check trip reports. So if you don't have a ranger station to contact, websites like All Trails, or here in Washington, we have the Washington Trail Association website. They have an option where people can post trip reports from recent days. They'll often include photos, and they'll include details that you may not think of, like what the condition of the road going to the trailhead is. Some of them have a lot of potholes, and if you just have a little sedan, your vehicle might have a hard time getting there. I want to remind you also that many hikes are out and backs, and you need to think about the way back. Me and my friends did a hike recently on Washington's Olympic Peninsula where we specifically wanted to do a sunset hike. And we fortunately had planned ahead that that meant hiking back in the dark. But just keep in mind also that you need to go out and back. So you want to make sure that you have enough water, enough food, and enough daylight to get back. Also, if you're doing quite a climb, sometimes going down, people actually get more fear of heights than going up. So you always want to be asking yourself, am I confident I can get down before you go up? Because you do not want to be one of the 4,500 annual search and rescue operations that happen. And those are just in our national parks alone, because that is both a strain on our park system, but also often comes with a very hefty fee for you. So you do not want to be search and rescued. Another good way that, I mean, you can't always avoid injury when hiking with others, but certainly it's always good to have hiking buddies. That way, if something happens to you on the hike, somebody knows about it and can try to seek help. And pretty much anywhere that you live in the country, you can find good hiking communities and groups to be a part of. Now, I would like to give a few tips on packing for your hike. So there are 10 essentials that the National Park Service recommends, and this is a place where packing for a hike is different than packing for Europe. Packing for Europe, Rick always says to assume the best case scenario. Assume, yeah, don't pack every single thing you can imagine a use for, because if you realize you forgot to pack deodorant, well, guess what? You can buy deodorant in Istanbul. You cannot apply the same thinking to being in the wilderness, because if you forget something, there will not be a store where you can buy it. Most of us probably are not skilled enough at braiding grass to create a hat in case we forget ours for sun protection. So you do want to be thinking of what are all the things I could need, and then trying to pack the lightest version of those things. So whether you're doing a multi-day backpacking trip with a large bag or just a day pack with a day bag, I'm going to go over the 10 essentials that the National Park Service recommends. I'm going to zip through these pretty quickly. Navigation. So pack a map, pack a compass, pack a GPS, and make sure that you have a vague sense of how to use them should you get turned around. Sun protection. So you want sunscreen, sunglasses, maybe long sleeves. This is something to keep in mind even in cold weather. Sometimes actually sun off of snow can, reflecting off of the snow can cause you to be sunburned at an even higher rate. Also, insulation, hat, gloves, a raincoat especially. You don't want to be wet and cold. And these are things even to pack in warm weather. I cannot tell you the number of times I decided to grab gloves at the last minute, even when it was 75 degrees in Seattle, and I thought I was crazy for doing it. And I ended up being very grateful because once you're up in the mountains, things can get chilly quickly. Just ask my friend Nathan, who even on our summer backpacking trip had his winter jacket with him and was happy for it. Hydration. So having a water bottle, electrolytes, and a water purifier are all good ideas. They make very easy water purifiers these days. I remember as a kid having to pump for half an hour to get a few bottles of water. Now they just have a bag that you can fill up and a nozzle that you can just squeeze the water through, and you could fill up a water bottle in just a handful of minutes. It's very impressive. And you always want to start drinking water proactively before you're thirsty, because once you start getting dehydrated, it is hard to catch up. Same goes for food. You always want to be eating some good, salty, high-calorie food before you feel hungry, to make sure that you're staying on top of your calories. And always be sure to pack extra food and pack out your waste. Illumination. So I highly recommend a headlamp for this because headlamps are hands-free. And remember, just because you are planning to be done before the sun sets doesn't mean that something couldn't happen. You could sprain your ankle and have to limp down the mountain, and you could finish in the dark. So always packing a headlamp is a great idea. Having a first aid kit with some common sense items, especially things for blister care, highly recommended. Having a repair kit. I have definitely had to repair my backpack with duct tape on a hike before. Emergency shelter is maybe one of the more extreme items, but the National Park Service does encourage people to think about having even something like a tarp in case they get stranded unexpectedly. And fire, having lighter or a matches. Of course, fire can not only provide heat, but also be a rescue signal. So those are the 10 items. I tried to think if there was like a fun acronym to remember them. I came up with Finish Fern. So it's not a very good acronym though. So you're probably just better off remembering the 10 essentials and reviewing them on the National Park Service website before going. Lastly, you'll notice I did not mention smartphones. You do not want to be relying on your smartphone for maps or communication because you might not get service or your battery could die. But it's always a good idea to pack it along as another option in addition to the 10 items. All right, we are all now packed. I have two more notes. One is always have broken in hiking boots. Do not wear your new hiking boots on a first hike. That is when you need the blister care kit. So make sure that you've broken in your hiking boots. And whether you have a big pack for an overnight trip or just a day pack, I always recommend having a pack with a hip belt. That helps distribute the weight between your shoulders and your hips. I also recommend I always pack one bag that I carry with me and a car bag of things that I might want when I get back to the car, like a fresh shirt, an extra pair of socks, extra snacks, and water, so that I have enough, but I don't feel like I need to pack all of that on my person. Now, Micah, for hike etiquette, I'm wondering if you remember you and I, after our rafting trip a few years ago, filmed a little video. Rather, you were the star, I was the cameraman for some hiking etiquette.
You're right. We were actually also the inspiration because we had just finished a rafting trip with a group of strangers, and I had so many people pull me aside and mention things that you did on the trail that I thought it'd be important to educate everyone and you in the process. So take more credit than you just gave me, Gabe.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. We're going to watch a little video that Micah partnered with REI for about some basic trail etiquette and sustainability practices. So here we go. Quick little video. Now, Micah, I don't know if you even realize what you did, but I only recently learned that there is a correct way to determine who has the right of way on the trail. And it's the people going uphill have the right of way. So if you're going downhill, you're supposed to step off to the side. So you did that very well in the video.
I am glad to see that that video has trained you, and you are now a graduate of our program and can successfully go on another rafting trip with me. So, all right,
We'll have to get
yeah,
planning.
yes.
We are going to get biking soon, but first, I just want to share a few of my favorite hikes. Again, this is not that these are the best hikes in the nation. These are just my favorite hikes that I've had the good fortune of doing. So let's look at some best destinations. My family loves Acadia National Park in Maine. We have been, I think, 3 or 4 times. It has a lot of nice, gentle hikes with beautiful views, but there's also some that are more technical for more experienced hikers. We especially like the Pametic Mountain Loop, where you get to go through some ravines and up some wooden ladders. Even my 1-year-old nephew did it, and you get rewarded with beautiful views at the top. Of course, the Utah national parks are incredible. This is me and my friend at Arches, where the rangers were stationed at the start of the hikes those days, making sure people had enough water. Of course, there's Zion, but also one of my favorites was one that I'd never even heard of before the trip. Capitol Reef National Park only gets about 28% of the amount of visitors of Zion. But my friend Max and I were there on the day of the solar eclipse in 2017 when people were flocking to national parks. And we did a 7 mile hike where we could see miles in every direction, and we only saw one person the entire time. So I think that this is a bit of a hidden gem in the national park system. Here in Washington, we of course have Rainier National Park, but in the same way that I think the best views of Paris aren't from the Eiffel Tower, but rather from other places that include the Eiffel Tower. I actually love doing iconic hikes like Mailbox Peak, where on a clear day you get a view of Rainier. Micah, you and I also did a hike on Orcas Island in the Puget Sound. This is you um, doing your best to vanquish me in one of my favorite travel games. And we went to Moran State Park and we hiked up past the Newt crossings to the top of Mount Constitution, the highest point in the Puget Sound. And this view is certainly one that I recommend for any hikers in the Pacific Northwest. And I also recommend Lake Ingalls. Not only is it a beautiful alpine lake with some dramatic scenery, but if you go in late September or early October, that is the time in Washington that is known as Larch Madness because you get these conifer trees called larches that their needles turn a beautiful golden color. It is very elusive. They only grow in certain parts of the North Cascades, but I was very happy to be there. Lastly, I just got back from a road trip in Oregon, and as a reminder, you don't have to be doing these 8 to 10 mile hikes. There are a lot of great smaller hikes, and sometimes you can plan a day to do multiple smaller hikes, and that allows you to kind of gauge your energy level and determine if you want to do each of the next ones. So I did a day in Central Oregon where I went to Newberry National Volcanic Monument and walked amongst these incredible igneous rock formations. Then I went to a beautiful waterfall. And finally, I crossed this rainbow bridge and found the Umpqua Hot Springs where I relaxed and read my book. I did all three of those hikes, and it was probably less than a total of 5 miles round trip. Micah, you also have a few favorite hikes to share with us. What would be some of your top three, having been to all the National Park Service sites? Oop. Here, I'll click back for you.
No, it showed me the unmute option after that. Thanks, Gabe.
Oh, there you go.
And to the Monday Night Travelers, I do need to add a quick apology. I was just giving Gabe a hard time because you've probably seen by now that we've traveled together so often that I'm used to the people we meet and travel with liking him way more than me. So I had to give him a jab while I could. But please know that I'm just joking about that. So just for the record, so everyone knows, that's why I had to do that. But I do want to thank you, Gabe, for your tips on packing because I am actually about to apply for my favorite TV show, Survivor. And I'm going to tell them that the reason I'm ready for being on their 52nd season is because I've sat through a Monday night travel training on survival etiquette in the wilderness with Gabe Gunning. So thank you for that. I can finally, after years of waiting for you to teach me, I can finally apply. But until I get to be on Survivor, I might just go back to some of my favorite hikes. And some of those are places like in North Dakota, of all places, the Caprock Coulee Trail, which is in Theodore Roosevelt National Park. For those of you who are very adventurous or have buns of steel able to sit on a plane for a while, Guam is one of my favorite hikes to Tanago Falls, where they actually have this swing set up so you can have your own sort of 1920s glamour movie moment swinging over the waterfalls. And then last but not least, I just did a show on NPR called Today Explained, where they asked me for some of my favorite recommendations. And one that I mentioned was that Acadia can get really crowded in the summer and the fall especially. But if you just go a few hours inland, you can hike the final portion of the Appalachian National Scenic Trail, or Appalachian, depending on what part of the country you're from. And that is to the top of Mount Katahdin in Baxter State Park in Maine. And my favorite part of that trail, other than getting to feel a little bit of like I did the Appalachian Trail myself, was all those tiny little dots beyond me who were the actual AT hikers who had done the same thing for months, because you could smell them from hundreds and hundreds of yards away because they had not showered in so long. So if you want to feel a little piece of that multi-month 14-state hike with just one 10-mile round trip day hike, go to the end of the Appalachian National Scenic Trail.
All right. Well, thank you, Micah. I think before we move on to our biking portion, it's time for a costume
It
change.
is time for a costume change. Safety first, they always say,
Safety
and I
first. Also, I
definitely
just want to say, Micah, that I think you are also very lovely and pleasant, but I can absolutely say that you would be much more cutthroat on Survivor than I would. So,
well,
um,
we all have our talents, don't we, Gabe? You're more likable and I'm more cutthroat.
all
But
right. Well, we are going to get started on our biking, Micah, and you went on a big bike adventure, and I want to start off this section by giving our viewers a little taste of that adventure that you had before we tell them how they could do something similar.
I love that. Let's go.
I was always told that we are born, we go to school where we should get good grades so we can get into a good college where we will meet our spouse, so then we can then get a good job and do that job until we're 65, at which point we'll be able to do the things we've been wanting to do our whole life that take more than 2 weeks vacation. Except when I saw my dad pass away at age 58, missing out on that American dream, I realized that would not be the case for him, and might not be the case for everyone.
I mean, I grew up in Nebraska, and my escape from Nebraska as a little closeted kid was watching the Travel Channel, and I never saw anyone like me on the Travel Channel. I have lots of fears and doubts about if I can pull this off. This is my first bike across adventure and my first bike packing trip ever. Well, let's start with most important. I have my helmet,
like
It's gonna be nice being with you because a lot of times I just do these things completely by myself. Have you ever been fit on a bike before?
No.
You should.
I have not done this for as many years as Cole, my riding buddy who's coming along. I am really a newbie and a novice to a lot of the cycling world and to backpacking in general. So for me, this is learning to swim by jumping in the water. And in this case, jumping in the water is a 363-mile bike across Oregon. Welcome to Tillamook County. One of the biggest parts of my work with inclusion and helping people feel like they're welcome in outdoor spaces is just showing people that no matter how you experience nature, it's valid. With that in mind, I came up with this new program called the Outside Safe Space. And the goal of this symbol was to be something that allies can wear in outdoor spaces to show that they are a welcoming person. Because that's just something we do as gay people always. We're constantly calculating, like, is this somebody I can be my full self around, or do I need to guard myself a little bit for my safety? Everywhere we go, we all have a role to play in helping create an outdoor space and a world that is more welcoming. I think that doing this journey helped prove a lot to myself.
We have bonded. I know my bike's sort of ins and outs, and it's much more a piece of me than it was at the beginning. Today is day 11 of 14 days total. If all goes to plan, we will roll into California on day 13.
We met a lot of Schwinn fans. Tons of people who were like, what? That's a Schwinn? Like, I had a Schwinn, my dad had a Schwinn. When I do these adventures, and whether it's living in a van for 3 years and visiting the national parks, or running across Minnesota, or running across Mississippi, or now doing this new adventure on a bike that I've never done before, I'm starting to believe that the most powerful way to get a message across is not to tell people, but to show people.
I absolutely love that opening, or that shot from the opening part of our journey of the bridge that crosses over from Washington into Astoria, which fans of the movie The Goonies will know. The film crew made us get up at like 3:30 in the morning so that we could capture the first rays of not even sunrise, of like pre-sunrise, and get that beautiful shot. But it was so cool seeing all the tankers in line to go into Portland down the Columbia River. It was a really spectacular experience.
That was the exact shot that also leapt out to me. It was exquisite. And I mean, the whole thing just filled me with an enthusiasm for figuring out how I could do a similar adventure. And of course, that trailer was kind of a highlight reel. I'm sure there were many ups and downs, but Mike, I'm eager to hear from you now how our viewers can begin the process of figuring out if this kind of trip might be for them, and how they could try to make sure that their bike packing trips are more ups than downs.
Yes, well, there were lots of ups and downs. And coming from the Midwest where I live, where it's very flat, and then having to bike the Oregon coast, 363 miles of hills, there were definitely a lot of ups that I stopped and caught my breath and maybe said some words that I'm not going to say on Monday Night Travel tonight, so we don't get you in trouble with the FCC. But one amazing thing about this journey that I did is that it's something all of you watching tonight can do. And I can already hear some of you saying, no, I can't, that's too hard or whatnot. And so if that is a fear of yours, I am going to offer just a few alternate options that you could sign up for. There is a group ride every July called RAGBRAI. It just celebrated over 50 years. This year will be its 51st of biking across the entire state of Iowa. And tens of thousands of people do this journey. Every year the route changes. They pick different small towns to go to along the way. So if you're someone who is interested in cycling and can put together a group of friends and wants to have an epic week. I have not done this myself yet. I'm hoping to next summer, but by all accounts, this is an incredible experience. So if you would like to bike across Iowa with some of your friends, don't sleep on this opportunity. But if maybe the pizza and beer at the end of every day's ride is more your speed, Where I live in Minneapolis, we have something every June called the Tour de Luce, which is a local pizza chain, and you can ride at your own pace to all of the, I think 7 now locations around town, and you get a little passport book, and every place you go to, you get a slice of pizza and a beer as your reward to making it to that restaurant. So wherever you live, definitely check out. There are going to be group rides, whether it's across the whole state or just in your own town. And there's going to be fun cycling rides. In my home state of Nebraska, there used to be a taco ride in Omaha. So if cycling is your jam, no matter what your skill or speed, there are definitely lots of fun ways that you can make it more than just a commute to work or a casual cycle around the neighborhood. But to talk about one of those adventures more in depth, I want to show you how accessible my cycle across Oregon actually is for anyone. Again, I didn't have a lot of cycling experience when I embarked on this journey. I had a friend who had tons, and that sort of was my motivation to keep going and try hard to keep up with him. But you can really cycle across the entire state of Oregon, the whole coast, at whatever pace you like. And that's because Oregon has this amazing state park system where basically the entire coast is lined with state parks. And even though their campsites often sell out like a year in advance or the day that reservations become available, they always guarantee that if you are a hiker or a biker, they will guarantee you a spot without reservations. And so why this is such a great program is that you could start in Astoria and think you're going to cycle 50 miles that day, and then only end up doing 10 and just go to the nearest state park and have a place to camp, whether you've planned ahead for that campsite or not. So if you do want to embark on an epic adventure, I highly recommend Oregon. And now, Gabe, I'm going to pass it over to some maybe smaller adventures.
Yeah, of course. I just really wanted to say one note, Micah, before we hear from you, and that is that you should certainly look up rail trails in your area. There are a ton of these across the United States. This is one nearby Seattle called the Snoqualmie Valley Regional Trail. It's about 30 miles, so this probably wouldn't be a multi-night bike packing trip, but it's a good illustration. There's also one near my hometown of Grand Rapids, Michigan, called the White Pine Trail, which certainly could be a multi-day trip. And being on rail trails, they are relatively flat. You do not need to be biking on roadsides, which is nice. And because the rail lines used to go from small town to small town, you're going to pass through a lot of small towns and have a lot of opportunities to stop and look around the local charms. Maybe November in Seattle when these photos were taken isn't the best time of year for that trip, but you can certainly look on Rails to Trails. There is a website where you can search for rail trails in your area, and that would be a great starting point. But Mike, I know that you have a lot of other practical bike packing tips for us.
Yeah, well, I was really lucky in that my friend Cole, who you saw in that Bike Across Oregon film, he regularly is just like, oh, I can leave work early on Friday. I'm going to go for a 250-mile ride this weekend. And he's like such a very humble Midwestern expert. And I spent many, many months getting help from him. And to save you all the time of searching for a Cole of your own, I wrote a blog, and we've put this link in the chat, and it is a first-time bike packer's gear guide, because one of the things that stressed me out the most was making sure I had the right gear, and it just takes so much time to find sort of the best options or the most affordable options. And so to help you all, just a couple of nights ago, I went back and made sure all the links are current. I have put every single item that you would need with a direct link to it so that you could get these items, hit the road, and go tomorrow if you want to. And I'm going to walk you through some of those right now. It was funny when I was first thinking about doing this journey, I sort of imagined like towing one of those trailers behind me that a kid could sit in, and all of these items. And my friend kept saying like, no, you do not want that. It's going to make it harder. You want it all to fit on the bike. And as one fellow Oregon bike packer said to me, that is a slick setup. If I had those sleek bags, my wife might be willing to come on more bike packing trips with me. So if your spouse is not want to join you, pay extra close attention to what I'm about to cover next. Obviously, as we talked about, the most important thing you're going to need is a helmet. Safety first. We want everyone to return from their adventures so they can go on another one, maybe a Rick Steves Europe tour or a rail to trail ride after that. This was me proposing at Proposal Rock in Oregon to my bike, asking if it would take me all the way to California. Fortunately, it said yes. So that was a really beautiful moment for us, and I was glad it was captured. But I've put some recommendations there of the exact bike that I used. You can certainly use other bikes. This was just one that I chose for a number of reasons. And so I have it there for you.
Micah, would you say that that picture was of the happy ride and groom?
I am not going to I am not going to affirm your dad jokes or your puns with a response. So bags, if you need a bag, I went with all Ortlieb bags because that was sort of the highest rated that everyone told me to do. They all were like the same set, so they looked great as well. Here you see the Ortlieb handlebar pack, and that is waterproof storage for your tent. You'll ride with your tent in front of your bike, and other items that you won't need during the day until you make camp. But right in front of that, I had their handlebar bag, and this was great for things that I wanted to access while riding or while pulling over. I was super thankful to have this one. As you can see, I had some corn nuts in there as fuel when I was on those ups and wasn't sure I could make it any further. It was a great time to say, oh my God, this snack is just taking up too much space in my bag. I have to eat it now or I won't be able to close this bag again. Next to that, you'll see that I have, this is the 6-liter version of a frame pack because I wanted that extra 2 liters of space. But this is sort of, this is something that's accessible when you're pulling over as well. So if you have other things that aren't going to fit in that accessory pack, it's great to have those in there. I drink a ton of water, as you've probably noticed, even just during Monday night travel. So I wanted to have 2 easily accessible water bottles. So I had these Swift Industries Sidekick stem pouches that allow you to put all sorts of water bottles and have them easily accessible. And then I wanted something that had like my wallet and my phone and my keys and my very important essentials right there in front of me so that I could access them and take them out with me if I was going into a restaurant or something where I would just feel safer knowing that they were on me. And then lastly, I had the large, I actually got a few people laughing at me for this one because I got the largest saddle bag possible. And this is where you can put whatever you need for the rest of your journey. And I like to use the straps on top for my flip-flops, or as you see in this other photo, for some snacks that we picked up at the grocery store. But my compromise with Cole was that I would get the biggest bags possible to avoid having to tow a trailer all the way. As you'll notice here, though, I was not fully prepared for this journey, and that's because I put these bags on without extra protection. I really should have used racer tape and then put the bags over that because of the moving of the bike. It's going to wear down your really expensive frame. So if you do any sort of bag or bike packing trip, whether that's multi-day or even a single day with a bag, make sure to get tape to protect your frame or it'll look like that. And then my last tip for bags is kind of silly, but I carried up one of these scrunchable like sack packs or gym packs, drawstring bags, because basically once we made camp every night, we would then cycle to town to go to a grocery store and get some food or snacks or drinks. And it was just so easy to have this to put that in and take it back to the campsite without having to finagle with my bags. So that's a Mikah Meyer tip right there, not a Cole tip to add to your gear. And then obviously you're going to need a place to sleep at night. Fortunately, there are companies who make specific bike packing tents. This one I had was the Big Agnes one, and it comes in both a 1-person and a 2-person version. But they make these specifically to have shorter poles so that it will fit in between your handlebars and not go beyond it. So if you are really, really specific with your bike packing, check out these specialized tents made for bikes. Also, you're going to want as light of a sleeping bag as possible because you are going to be biking this weight up mountains or even across flat Iowa. So try to find the lightest sleeping bag that you can. Same thing, you're going to want a light sleeping pad, one that compresses. This is one that I have that you blow up with air, so it's not like one of the accordion ones that takes up more space. Space is the answer here. The smaller things can shrink down to, the better. And then when it comes to apparel, you might be a really slick cyclist and have a professional kit and look like all the pros. I did not want to wear that. I wanted something sort of more normal feeling. So I opted for bike shorts, which if you look in this photo, you can kind of see a lip right where my thigh is. And what I did is I had on biking shorts, and then I had on just like leggings on top of that, so that if I got hot, I could just easily remove them without having to totally drop my drawers on the middle of an Oregon highway. And that's what these are, those Pearl Izumi Elite Thermal Leg Warmers. And I also added some sun sleeves as well, so I really made it as easy as possible to get cooler or warmer, especially because in Oregon the weather changes like that. Which brings us to gloves. I both had full finger gloves that covered the tips of my fingers for when it got really cold or rainy. I also had Pearl Izumi Elite Gel Cycling Gloves that leave the tips of your fingers open so you can use your phone or access other things super easily. I had both, but that's just a personal preference. And then when it came to clothes, I recommend water resistant or proof outerwear, and then a moisture wicking base layer to help keep you cool and protected from the sun and wind all at the same time. Then I also would always have neck protection because I don't like always having to reapply sunscreen, and this kept me from getting sunburned with that, or I could pull it up if it was really rainy and was getting in my face. And then aside from that, I had sunglasses, bedclothes so that I had something comfortable to sleep in, a hat to wear when your helmet isn't on. My friend Cole made fun of me often because he'd be like, Micah, do you feel in danger in the grocery store because you've been wearing your helmet for 20 minutes? And I would just forget that it was on, which is great. But it was nice to have that hat to not always look like I needed protection when I was on a regular hike. And I had clothes that allowed me to hike as well, because it wasn't just about cycling for me. It was about taking in the full journey and all of the fun along the way. So that's something to consider, whether you're the type of traveler who likes to just go, 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 or if you get distracted easily and want to look at the side. I'm not going to go through all of these accessories one by one, but they are on that blog, and these are little tools that are going to help you along the way. You can see in that photo everything I took on that journey, all in one picture. So if you want to do a deep dive on this, I will let you all do that on the blog. And finally, we're going to talk about what I overpacked. Again, this was my first time. I was extra stressed and over concerned, and so you'll see these red X's on things that I really wish I hadn't packed. I didn't need 2 bike shorts, 1 was enough. I didn't need 2 t-shirts, 1 was enough. And we did do laundry on our week-long trip, and it was totally possible even had I not had those extra items. So really don't overpack. Gabe, time to strip.
And Mike, I just want to say that I enjoyed that a pride flag was one of your must-pack items for your bike trip.
I mean, did you not see how well the colors popped in some of those photos?
And also, Micah, you were the one that connected us with Andrew Mortensen, who did a show for us almost 2 years ago now on he biked across the world. He biked from up near Seattle down to the southern tip of South America in Patagonia,
Yes.
and then biked from Spain to Singapore. And even with that journey, just packed what you did, or if anything, even slightly less.
I know Andrew made fun of me for how much I carried on that trip. Actually, hopefully Andrew and I will be back on Monday Night Travel sometime together in the years to come. I tried to convince him to be a secret guest on tonight and to appear. Andrew, no, I'm kidding. He and I are working on cycling across Africa together. We want to go from Casablanca on the western coast to Cairo, all the way to the east to that ocean, and then all the way down to Cape Town. So stopping at one, like the best national park of every country along the way. So if you're watching us from Africa, or you work for a tourism bureau there, or you're a philanthropist who really wants to see me and Andrew bike across Africa together, call me.
Well, I'm not a philanthropist, but I'll pitch in a little bit. I'd want to see that. And I did not pack my flotation device for the raft section, so I'm just going to have to be ready to swim. So I have my goggles. And we are going to get started now, Micah, on the last of our three sections, rafting. This is the one that is newest to me, and I actually wanted to start out with a quick review of my first ever overnight rafting trip and one that we did together. So this was almost over 3 years ago now.
Oh,
Um,
is this the video where the water splashes you in the face?
I didn't actually include that video. That should
Oh,
be some like bonus content.
it's on
Maybe
my
we'll,
Instagram if you want to see it.
I did get slapped in the face by the river.
Really
Um,
hard. It's in slow motion in the video.
but that is the most intense that is the most harmed I got on the river, which I wanted to start out with this photo because I don't know, Micah, how if I expressed to you just how nervous I was before the trip. Before the
No.
trip, they make you watch like a safety video of everything that could happen. And of course, they want you to be prepared. But going into the trip, I was sure that I was going to get sucked into a rapid and die. And this would be my last trip. And I am happy to say that that did not happen and that it was extremely enjoyable. And I want to just give a quick glimpse of what a first rafting trip could look like. First, we've been talking a lot about packing in this show. Again, you need to pack very carefully when you are going into the wilderness. Fortunately, on a big raft, you don't have to pack quite as light as you do on a bike. But this is Micah and I the night before the trip started, meticulously packing our things into the dry bags. And we set off. We had a flotilla of three large rafts, a smaller raft, and an old dory, they called it, kind of the rowboat. This is us loading up onto the Yampa River. So the Yampa River, it spans Utah and Colorado and is a tributary to the Colorado River. And immediately I was just gobsmacked by these perspectives of American wilderness that I don't usually get. These huge, immense walls of striated rock. I just felt like I was looking back millennia.
I'm pretty sure when we went through that, you called me Frodo because you said you felt like this was the Lord of the Rings and we were
I
about to
did.
go on some epic journey.
I did. In The Lord of the Rings, there's like a clip where they're like rowing in their canoes past like these giant statues from like the ages past. And that's how I felt. And does that mean I'm Samwise?
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll be Samwise. Um, so we would just meander across the river for a few hours. I also thought that we were going to be rowing a lot. Um, there was one boat that you could be in and row, but most of the time you were just floating along and chit-chatting and relaxing. We would pull off to the side. We would set up camp. You can get a sense of how beautiful our campsites were. There's Micah modeling with our tent. We would have very simple but very hearty filling meals. You can see us getting our meals on the right. And
And
the
even you as a
best,
vegetarian had food every night as
yes,
well.
even as a
Yes.
vegetarian, I was accommodated every night. They were very adaptable in accommodating dietary restrictions. And the absolute best part of the trip was the people. There was a great diverse. I was surprised by the diversity of people that there were on the trip. And I, on our Rick Steves Europe tours, we always say that we become a traveling family, and that is extremely true. I think it's even more true on this trip where you're with each other even longer. You don't have big European cities that you can escape into and have some of your own time. You have this very tight bonding experience, and you can't even use your phones. So all of your connection comes from the people around you. And we had an exceptional group. One of our tour members, Nikki, would do yoga every morning before we got on the river to make sure that we were warmed up. And we also went on a bunch of side hikes through some really interesting rock formations and caverns. Here we are in this gorgeous rock formation, and we also experienced a lot of Native American history. This was a place where Native American people would basically vacuum seal their grains for the winter. They would put the grains in these kind of stone containers. They'd light a fire, put the lid on, and then seal it with clay. the fire would burn up all the oxygen and then it would preserve that grain so that they could then crack them open and have preserved food in the winter. I also learned the difference between petroglyphs and pictographs. Petroglyphs are carved into the rock, pictographs are painting on the rock. But it was amazing to see these Native American sites that I would not be able to access any way other than by the river. And of course, one of my favorite little side excursions was Butt Dam Falls, where somebody could sit at the top of this little waterfall and dam it up with their rear. And then somebody would stand underneath and they would stand up and let the water cascade down over them. So we had a fantastic time. Here's Micah and I with our BFFs from the trip, Amanda and Lindsay. Shout out to you, Amanda and Lindsay. And I was very quickly at ease, and it was one of my favorite vacations I've taken in years. So, Micah, I just went on the one trip, but you have been on many rafting trips, and I'm wondering if you can give us a sense of what might be some of the places that people consider doing a rafting trip.
Yes, and thanks, Gabe, for so explicitly explaining that a rafting trip does not mean that you have to use your massive muscles to power the boat down the river. That in actuality, something that might be more accurate would be like one of those old movies of Cleopatra being carried by men to go where she needs to go, because you essentially are a princess just sitting on this raft, eating snacks and staring at the beautiful canyons as you pass by, and then going and making your own camp while someone else cooks you steak or a mushroom steak for dinner. So when you hear rafting, it's not what you think. And I should also note that Gabe and I didn't organize this trip on our own. While you certainly can get a private permit and do this with friends with your own gear, we signed up for a commercial rafting trip, and that's where you just go to a website, pay the deposit, and sign up, and they have all the gear, all the food. And the average age of a visitor who do these trips is in their 60s. So if you're worried that maybe you're not the perfect physical specimen like Gabe to do this, actually most people who do this are retirees. So don't let anything hold you back from experiencing one of these wonderful trips. And I'm going to take you through some of the most common commercial rafting trips in America right now. And most of them are in the American West. And so I put circles around here of sort of the most typically offered ones. So whether you live within drivable distance of one of these or need to fly out, I live in Minneapolis, I often fly out, maybe fly to Denver, rent a car to drive to the put-in like Gabe and I did on the Yampa, fly to Salt Lake City, fly to Portland, etc. So they're really easy to access. There's even some in Alaska for those of you who like more cold weather, but there are tons of options you can do just to ease any fears you have on whether I'm qualified to tell you about this or not. Here is a snapshot of some of the rivers that I've gone on trips down. The Grand Canyon, I've done 3 times. Gates of Lodore and Dinosaur National Monument. I did a 12-day journey on the Noatak River and Kobuk Sand Dunes in Alaska. Cataract Canyon, which is Canyonlands, Westwater Canyon, which is on the western edge of Colorado, the Rogue River in Oregon, the Main Salmon River in Idaho, the Yampa that Gabe and I did together, Desolation Canyon in Utah. So there are so many options that you can do. But if you're a little worried about a multi-day trip, as you saw in those shots, Gabe is going to tell you about some day trips you can do.
Yeah, so I also have a friend that organizes just a rafting day trip. This is a way where you can kind of get a taste for it. Um, my friend organizes one each year, and I was able to go last year on the White Salmon River at the Washington-Oregon border. And this was certainly one where we were doing a lot more paddling. So there is sometimes the multi-day ones and the really big rafts, you are just a passenger princess, as Michael likes to say. But sometimes you can also do ones where there is more paddling involved. So you want to do your research and know the expectations. This one, I also want to say, while the Yampa River and was extremely relaxed most of the time, I don't want to diminish that you will occasionally go through some big rapids. It's kind of the point. So you do, while you don't need to be an amazing paddler, you do need to be able to, grab on tightly to some handles, and they teach you how to kind of duck appropriately. On my day trip, they actually gave us the option. At the very end was a 12-foot waterfall plunge. They gave us the option to get out and walk to the end, but of course, me and my friends stayed in. We almost completely submerged, but we popped out just fine. So you can also try some of these shorter trips or try trips where you're going to be a more active paddler.
And I will add that day trips actually tend to be the more active paddler trips because they drive you right to where the whitewater is and you just do the most intense whitewater section. Whereas multi-day trips, you go through a lot more flat water to get to those rapids and to get to these side hikes. So if you're thinking that the day trip is the easier option, that's not always the case.
All right, Micah, I think it's now time for a little film preview.
Yes, this title that you see here, Canyon Chorus, is a film that I made in August of 2023. I filmed it with four of my best friends going down Desolation Canyon in Utah. And really the purpose of making this was to help people get out and enjoy our incredible rafting trips. The gentleman you see in the far right wearing the Hawaiian lei is my mentor, and it took me 5 years to get him to do one of these trips. And he kept complaining and saying, I'm too old. I'm going to slow down the group. He had every excuse under the sun. And finally, I got some money to make a film. And I said, this trip is free, Larry. You can't say no. And so he came along on this trip. We made a film about it called Canyon Chorus, which is 16 and a half minutes. And it was voted one of the best outdoor films of 2024. And then it spent 2025 touring the globe on the Banff World Tour as one of those best films to 500,000 audience members, 600 screenings in 47 countries on every single one of our 7 continents, including Antarctica. And we are going to show you just a snippet of that film here, but then I'm also going to tell you how you can watch it for free. So don't worry about that. Before we show you that, though, this is some photos of that Banff World Tour. So you can imagine that you're in one of these audiences. That is Phoenix in the upper left corner. Upper right is Brevard, North Carolina. Lower right is Bellingham, Washington. Lower left is Santa Cruz, California. And then there in the dead center is Seattle, where about 2,000 people come each night of the Banff World Tour. So pretend like we're doing our own Banff World Tour stop here as you see a piece of Canyon Chorus.
Well, my name is Larry Edwards, and I'm on my first whitewater river rafting expedition. If you haven't been here, I mean, it's like taking pictures of this is just silly because it's just impossible to grasp what an amazing place this is.
You can be yourself. You don't have to put up an act. You don't have to hold back.
I think the reason a place like this is beneficial is it's not our real world. Only in a place like this, I think, can we really just let go of these things. Everything's happening and Michael's going, right, hard right, no, left. And I don't know, I just started laughing at it. I just was paddling. Adrenaline like crazy, not 1 second of fear, just adrenaline. Very fun. Everybody's got to do this. I'm hungry right now. Let's go get some lunch.
Being in nature just is always transformative. To be here with all of these people, you say goodbye to the stressors of the world.
I feel like coming out to nature, it's a safe place to go, letting myself be free and open.
And Micah, I was in the audience at that Seattle screening, and not only did I think it was exceptional, but I'm not flattering you. I overheard multiple people say, that was my favorite film of the night. So it really is, and it's only what, 20 minutes?
16 and a half. And
16 and a half.
I'm not worried that you're flattering me. Don't worry. In our 5 years of knowing each other, you never flattered me once. So I threw that expectation out the window a long time ago.
Well, it's because you earn all of the praise, Micah. All right, so Micah, I'm gonna let you control the screen and continue telling us about your rafting adventures and
Yeah,
What
thanks.
are
Well, as you mentioned, you were in the audience at the Banff World Tour, and a lot of times the Banff World Tour sells out. And so as I was traveling the country following my film, I actually had churches reach out to me and ask me to show the film as their sermon time. And so in the past year, I have been at 42 different churches around America showing Canyon Chorus and being their guest preacher and singer. So if you're watching this and your pastor wants a Sunday off, reach out to me on my website and I'll let you know when I'm coming through your town, and you can watch Canyon Chorus in the comfort of your own pew if you aren't able to make it to a Banff tour or one doesn't come to where you live. But if you do want to watch Canyon Chorus right now, it is, or right after Monday Night Travel finishes, it is now free and able to be watched online, whether you're watching us live right now or watching this later. All you have to do is go to YouTube and type in Canyon Chorus. And as you'll see here, it's called, I say, a river rafting journey like you've never heard before. And that's because there is live music in the film. And we got a lot of accolades, a lot of awards, a lot of film festivals. So I guarantee you this will be worth your 16 and a half minutes if you watch Canyon Chorus after Monday Night Travel tonight. And you can do so on my website. If you don't want to go to YouTube, you can just go to mikahmeyer.com. And we have that link for you in the chat, mikahmeyer.com/documentary. And there is a YouTube link embedded. And you can also learn some other fun facts about the rafting trip that we did, read some articles about it, see some behind the scenes photos. So if you got turned on by this rafting trip, definitely check out Canyon Chorus. And as was mentioned in the teaser, it really is a transformative experience. I always leave feeling a great reset in my life after days of no cell phone service and just focusing on friends and nature. It's something that I try to do every year just to sort of recenter myself. So it really is often a spiritual experience. Gabe, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
No, I think honestly for me, one of the biggest things was just not being on my phone for 5 days. And just not looking in a mirror, not caring about how do I look, what are my friends up to, just being so fully present in that one place. And in that, I mean, just even in this canyon, like you feel like you're kind of sequestered and just cradled in this one specific place, and your only job is to be present there.
I was really impressed, Gabe. I know that you're addicted to your phone and social media, so I
I
was really
am not.
impressed. So some best practices, I'm going to very quickly take you through how to go on the perfect rafting trip for you. It's not going to be as detailed as the bike packing was, and that's because I have a whole resource that you can take with you after Monday Night Travel. So a 3-step process to finding your perfect rafting trip is, number one, pick your length. There are options. Actually, one company just released a 42-day commercial rafting trip, which will completely retrace John Wesley Powell's expedition down the Colorado River system. So you can go as long as 42 days, and you can also do as short as just like an overnight. So I've actually had people who say that they worry that they will be incapable of not using a connected plumbing toilet. And I tell them, even if you do a 3-day trip, you can go to the bathroom in a real toilet in the morning of day number 1 and the evening of day number 3. So if you have the ability to hold it for 2 nights, you can still do a multi-day trip, even if that is your biggest fear. But I would recommend usually a 3-day, 2-night at minimum. Ideally a 4-day, 3-night to start, because I think that's the perfect amount of time to get lost in nature and not having a phone, but also to not have to go so long without a real shower that you're worried you might freak out. But once you've decided your days, you get to pick your location. As we saw on the map, there are options in the Pacific Northwest that are really lush and really green. There are also options in Arizona and Utah and Colorado that look like this photo, that are desolate, dry deserts with rivers running through them. As Larry said, taking pictures of these is silly because you really can't experience it 360 until you've been there yourself. So think about a location that's easy for you to fly to or to drive to, and that has scenery that you think you would enjoy. And then lastly, packing. As Gabe mentioned, you do want to be meticulous with it, but you don't have to be perfect. And that's because ultimately your bag just sits on a raft and somebody else rows it for you. But I do want to make sure that you're fully prepared to have the best time possible and have things like gel for your feet so that you can rub lotion in at night and stop them from getting extra dry because your feet are in and out of water so much all day. So, to help you with this, I've made a few really simple websites. Number one, if you go to mikahmeyer.com/support, I have actually partnered with Oars Rafting, brand new this month. I'm like their first person to ever do this, to where if you click the link that I have on my website to go to their website, instead of Google getting the 5% referral fee, your 5% referral fee will go to the advocacy work that I'm doing to help people better experience nature. So if you're looking for a direct link to a website that'll show you all these options, head to mikahmeyer.com/support and you will get that. Again, I recommend 3 to 5 days for the first start trip. If you're looking for my favorite recommendation of the best rafting trip to start with, it's the Gates of Lodore, which is in Dinosaur National Monument in northeastern Utah, northwestern Colorado. If you don't know, if you want just Micah, tell me what to do, tell me the best one. In my opinion, it's Gates of Lodore, and you can do a 3, 4, or 5 day option. Again, here is what that page looks like. If you use this affiliate link to go to the Oars website, then your trip at no extra cost to you will help support the advocacy work that I do to help people get out into nature and experience our amazing rivers and places. And I also put together a blog, same thing as the previous one. I have exact links to the exact products that I use on every trip that I go rafting. So I've made it super easy for you to just click, click, click and get everything you need and go. And if you're like me and you're always worried that you're going to forget something, I made that list a PDF with little check mark boxes so you can print it out and go through one by one the night before. You can even hand it to Gabe so he stops asking you, and he himself or you yourself can check off to make sure you have everything you need. So whether you go to my website and see the list there or just print that out, after many, many years of doing these trips, as I've titled it, is the ultimate river trip packing list. So it'll have everything you need. But if you really want to get extreme, because I'm sure a lot of you watching this are saying, Micah, blah, 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 I don't want easy trips, I don't want relaxing trips, I don't want comfortable trips, give me something intense. I am very quickly going to take you through one of my favorite ways to travel, and that is to run. And as you see here, I am running down a highway in Minnesota, and that is because in 2020, I lived in an RV and ran across the entire state of Minnesota, 10K a day over 6 weeks, which was super fun. But if you don't have an RV or you don't want to rent an RV, I also ran across my home state of Nebraska and I stayed in hotels the whole time. So that makes it a little easier to deal with back roads that are gravel or having to run over these steel bars that keep cows from escaping their rancher's land. So if you're looking for more an intense adventure, you can run across a state 10K a day like I did, or as many miles as you want. And that's a really fun way to experience a lot of roads you'd never see otherwise. But the reason I ran across those states was to launch this outside safe space symbol, which you see me holding here and which I've pretty much been wearing all night in various forms. And that is a symbol that I started so that LGBTQ plus allies, people who support the queer community, could wear it when they're recreating in the outdoors, in nature, in rural spaces or active spaces, places where LGBTQ plus people often feel left out or maybe not as accepted. I live in Minnesota where people don't like to talk to strangers. And so I say this is a passive aggressive way that you can non-verbally signal to people that you are Minnesota nice by putting this patch on your backpack. Here we were talking about it back in 2022 when all I had were pins and stickers and patches. But since then, you all have written me and told me you want more products, which I successfully got into over 60 National Park Service sites for you. Except last year, the federal government made us pull them from the shelves. We were no longer allowed to sell them because they were considered too diverse. However, that hasn't stopped me. The program is still active. There are over 110,000 people wearing these symbols. The pins and the stickers are now available in every REI, all 194 across America. But if you would like to get one of these for yourself, you can go to my website or outsideSafeSpace.com, and we now have magnets and stickers and pins and so on, iron-on patches. keychains, beautiful beanies like Gabe is modeling wonderfully there. They're super soft. Everyone who touches them when I take them out to festivals and fairs says, oh my gosh, how are these so soft? And we also have repair patches. So if you get a hole in your puppy coat or have waterproof material that you cannot iron or sew onto, these were designed specifically to go on all materials. So if you order one of those tonight, I will ship them right out to you, and you'll have them despite the Park Service stopping selling them, so that you can help people know that they are safe with you when they encounter you in these spaces. Which is a wonderful segue to today being the first day of Pride Month. I think actually that might be why I'm here. Dave called and said, Micah, nobody really cares about your park stuff, but they all love Pride Month. Would you come on for Pride Month? So we are celebrating that today by talking about the outside safe space. And I'm sharing with you a special Pride Month story. You're going to get a teaser of the other run that I did, and that was across the state of Mississippi, the birthplace of America's music, Elvis Presley, to be precise. And that is because after running across those other states, I learned a lot about what life is like for people in these outdoor and rural spaces. And so I asked my social media followers what the most homophobic state in America was, vowing that I would run across whatever state they voted. And Mississippi won the public vote. So I ran across the state, sometimes dressed as Elvis, including going to his birthplace. And it was a fascinating experience that I am now putting into my next short film to hopefully bring around the country to all of you on that Banff World Tour. I have been fundraising for this film all on my own. There is no corporate support for this film. It is a story that companies are afraid to be attached to because there's so much diversity highlighted in it. So we're about 80% of the way there towards funding this. So if you know of family foundations who would like to support this, please reach out to me. If you would like to make an individual donation, and the majority of our funding has come from people just supporting with a little bit here and there. And then all of the sales of the outside safe space items right now are helping fund this film so that I can get back on the road on the Banff World Tour and take more outside safe space items around the country. So if that's something that's on your heart, as we would say, where I went to school in Memphis, you can head to mikahmeyer.com and donate there. It is tax deductible. It's 501c3 organization, so you can support this film and knock off some dollars from your taxes in the process. And we are rewarding you, faithful Monday Night Travel visitors, sitting through our entire presentation and having to listen to me talk about what a wonderful traveler Gabe is by showing you a preview of this film, Misadventure. And again, hopefully I will get this film made in time to travel on the Banff World Tour and then come and meet all of you. This was me at a stop in Everett, Washington. I think we tried to see if Rick could come down for this, but he was in Europe. Go figure. So he wasn't able to join us, but I love meeting you all on the road. So once this film is made, I'd love to meet you all out there while the film is happening and being shown across the country. And
all right, well, here's our preview, Micah.
Yes, thanks, Gabe.
An openly gay man is currently running across the state of Mississippi to raise awareness for LGBTQ issues.
And also because he's being chased.
I'm gay, but when I'm at the Capitol, I'm bipartisan.
And I'm glad you're doing this because it's now giving an insight and an open mindset to other people who are maybe watching this. That insight on how the world outside of their backyard is really functioning.
One of the reasons I decided to run across the state was I thought, I bet most people can't even conceptualize what Mississippi looks like.
We're in snowy Oxford, Mississippi. It's a once-in-a-lifetime snow, which is not what I expected when I planned a February run across Mississippi. Our runs have gotten a lot different scenery than we ever expected, and now I'm running on snow as if I'm back home in Minnesota instead of on the other end of the Mississippi River.
It's a lot being back here. It's been way harder this run than I imagined it would be. It's a reminder of like how tiring it is to feel like you have to apologize for who you are. And I don't feel that way where I live, but I do feel that way here. And I feel like I worked a long time to not feel that way. And I think it's just hitting me right now. that mix of the past 10 days that we have 20 more to go.
Well, we have so many rednecks around here. You know, all the little small towns. I'm not going to name any.
So I'm just going to hear things behind me and wonder, like, does somebody see me in this rainbow tutu and be like, well, let's hit that queer, and hit me and drive off and nobody would know? Oh God, am I really going to run 10 miles in this? I'm sorry. Is this true marketing here?
Well, unicorn Micah.
Yes, this is the exact unicorn dress that I ran part of the Run Across Mississippi in, because at one point people were so, we'll say, unsupportive of what I was doing that I said, you know what? I think I'm going to quit. Nope, I'm just going to dress in a more fun way and finish this trip with unicorn powers. So if you would like to see me in full unicorn dress regalia, I'm not standing up right now because you're not going to see how short this is, but you can see it if Misadventure comes to theaters.
Oh, we saw it at the beginning of the preview, Micah.
Oh, shoot.
But
Oh.
I am already so excited to see the film, and I think if you can survive a run across Mississippi, you can definitely survive being on Survivor. So
I was going to say, if I can survive 5 days rafting with you, I can definitely survive on Survivor, but I don't think our travel companions would agree. So,
I mean, I definitely, all of my treatment of you has been to toughen you up for the ultimate goal of being
is
in
that what it's
Survivor.
been
Whether
all
you
these
knew
years,
that or
Gabe?
not, that's always been my aim. So you're welcome.
Oh my God, I wish you'd have told me that before I cried all those nights.
And in that vein, I'm now going to grill you with some questions from our audience. So thank you again, Micah, for taking the time to share ways that we can explore our own backyard.
Yes, and I did want to add lastly that if you do want to meet me at one of these stops, even before Misadventure comes out, I'm actively touring around the country, going to pride festivals and churches. So if you follow my social media, Instagram or Facebook, every month, actually tonight or tomorrow, I need to put out June and July's. I post the cities I'm going to and doing these live screenings. So if you want to meet me in person, I can't guarantee I'll be wearing this, but check out my social media to see future tour stops.
And we linked to Micah's social media channels in the chat links.
Yeah.
Micah, our first question comes from Marsha. This is a nuts and bolts bike packing question.
Okay.
And one that I've experienced myself on some of my longer rides. How do you stay comfortable on a bike seat?
Well, the beautiful thing about kits or bike shorts is that they have built-in butt padding. So that's the easiest way, is to not wear just your regular shorts, but to get these specialized bike apparel that have padding built in. The junk in your trunk will not be junk. It will be comfort. No BBL needed.
Thank you. Another question comes from Susan. I don't know if Susan remembers from the first time you were on, but you have a graduate degree in vocal performance. And she was wondering, when you're out hiking or rafting, do you literally sing as you hike? Or what are maybe some of the things that you do to pass the time if you're not singing when you're on some of these longer journeys?
Yes, well, Gabe, I'm going to compliment you, so be ready. You and I, when we've gone on long hikes, have been very good at making conversation about the most random things. So usually I'm chatting about stuff. Actually, one of the conversations we had in the Faroe Islands inspired part of Canyon Chorus, because we were there just a few weeks before filming that. So usually I like to have conversations with people who I'm with. I sometimes do sing, especially if I'm afraid there's a bear. I've made up lots of songs about, please don't be a bear around the corner. Hey, don't be a bear around the corner. That have gotten me through some hikes, especially when I didn't have a headlamp and had to hike down Emery Peak in Big Bend National Park, because I spent so much time at the peak because it was so beautiful that I was hiking in the dark. So great tip earlier, Gabe. But yes, if you watch without giving away too much, if you make it to the end of Canyon Chorus, there is a scene where I sing kind of the highest, loudest note I can, and you can hear it ping back and forth in the canyon. The original name of Canyon Chorus was actually Echoes in the Canyon, because it was this cool experience. We all were just like giggling silently after hearing it. So if you make it to the end of Kenya Chorus, you'll get to hear it ping back and forth.
Well, Micah, I think that if you're a true unicorn, you don't need to be afraid of bears. Unicorns can take bears. Everybody knows that.
Thanks, Gabe. I appreciate that.
I have just a couple comments that I want to mention from our
Okay.
viewers.
I'm listening closely.
One, Glenn, who is viewing, has done RAGBRAI 20 times and definitely encourages people to do it, but also encourages caution towards the beginning because there are a lot of new bikers that aren't as experienced in biking in large groups. So if you want to do it for the first time, make sure that you are maybe kind of looking up the best practices for how to bike in large groups. Karen also mentions if you live in the Midwest, the Miami Valley in Ohio has over 350 miles of bike paths, the nation's largest paved off-road trail network. So bikers out there, there's some tips from your fellow Monday Night Travelers.
Well done.
And another question for you, Micah, comes from Gary. Gary is wondering, as somebody that goes to the national parks often, aside from your outside safe space merch being pulled from the stores for DEI reasons, have you seen any of the other impacts of the current administration and political machinations impacting our parks?
I have, unfortunately. Actually, when the NPR show Today Explained reached out to me to be a guest, one of the questions they had for me was, how have the parks changed in the past 10 years from when you did your journey in 2016 to 2019 to 10 years later today? And I reached out to all of the National Park Ranger friends that I made along the way and said, hey, can you just give me some examples from your park that I can share with people? And every single park ranger that I reached out to said that they did not feel safe to tell me the changes because they were afraid that it would somehow get back that it was them who told me this and that they would get fired. So our park rangers right now are really afraid to keep their jobs. So if you're at a park, if you want to give them a hug, if they consent, or maybe give them a tip or share a kind word with them, I think they would really appreciate hearing that the people who are using the National Park Service sites are thankful for them and the work that they're doing. And a lot of them are short staffed now, so they're working harder and extra duties than they're used to, including like historians and interpreters emptying porta potties. So it has gotten shittier in literal senses and metaphorical senses.
Well, on that lovely note, Micah, I do have one more question for you. And that is, you mentioned that you and Andrew want to be doing a bike across Africa, but
Yeah.
what would be your next what's the next outdoor adventure in the US that's at the top of your list?
So actually, RAGBRAI, I'm working on my next short film to do that with a group of LGBTQ advocates. And before we do RAGBRAI, biking from west to east, we are going to drive from east to west and stop in every town along the way and do community service. So I'll be volunteering at local churches. We'll have environmentalists helping out with community gardens and helping with sustainability with trash for all the thousands of cyclists who are going to come through. So RAGBRAI is actually on my list for 2027. Some shorter adventures that I am looking forward to are getting out to some of my Minnesota state parks this summer. I'm spending a lot more time at home in Minnesota between film screenings, and I was just talking to Olympian Jessie Diggins yesterday, actually at the Outside Festival in Denver, and she is from Afton, Minnesota, next to Afton State Park. And I was talking to her about some of her favorite activities, and despite living in Minnesota for 5 years now, I have yet to Nordic ski. And I found out that, Gabe, you'll appreciate this, legendary runner Scott Jurek, who at one point had the world record for the fastest time on the Appalachian National Scenic Trail, started out as a Nordic skier. And I've been told that many famous, successful runners were first Nordic skiers because the skills translate really well. So it's not like a far-flung epic adventure, but I'm looking forward to this coming winter to finally trying Nordic skiing.
You can't just mention Scott Jurek and Jessie Diggins in one story. It's like my heart is beating too fast now.
Well,
But Micah, thank you so much again for taking time out tonight. I mean, you have now, publicly criticized me for not complimenting you enough. So I will say you are a great friend, you are a great speaker, you are a great traveler, and we were very fortunate to have 90 minutes of your time this evening. So thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you all the best as you gallop into your next adventures.
Thank you. And if you watch Canyon Chorus, please leave me a comment so I know that you enjoyed it and I know that you made your way from Monday Night Travels and you kept on traveling virtually.
Thank you, Micah. And thank you to all of you. We hope that this inspired you to get out into our own American backyard this summer and to experience our nature in maybe a way that you haven't before. I also want to remind you that next week we are going back across the Atlantic to Europe. Our very first employee ever at Rick Steves Europe, Dave Herline, he's also our map maker, will be joining us for a discussion of Scandinavian capitals in Copenhagen, Stockholm, and Oslo. So we hope that you will join us next week. Good night, Micah. Good night,
Bonne nuit,
Emily.
Gabe.
Good night, Gabe. Good night, Micah.